but maybe we're going to spend more time with each other actually working together on how you throw a ball to someone and not throw a ball at someone. How, if somebody has something you want, that you don't just grab it away. Practicing those social skills. We want children to have the proper social skills. We want them to be pro-social. Hey kid, you better get it together. But it's our responsibility as the adults in their life to actually teach them how to be pro-social, how to get those skills together. We have to step up as adults. You know, in the past, we were very lucky. We had many influences affecting our children, positive influences. Churches, youth groups, schools, lots of different things.
Boy Scouts.
Boy Scouts, exactly. We're still lucky in our community that in Bennington and Manchester and the areas in between, we still have those influences. Nationally, that's fallen away somewhat, and the school is often the only stable organization, the only stable institutional structure that there is. We, in the school system, have to make sure that we step up and provide appropriate role modeling and not push those kids away, but actually draw them in. You mentioned about scouting and things like those activities. Those youth activities, those opportunities are great for taking those leaders and making sure they stay on the straight and narrow. Really good stuff.
As long as, of course, that in those, let's say those youth groups of different types, have adults that make sure that they don't tolerate bullying and abusive behavior. Because sometimes it can happen there also.
Good supervision is the key.
And it's always the key. And Michael said something interesting, you know, and I completely agree, where when you have someone who's treating others abusively in a hurtful way, to bring them closer, one of the benefits of spending time and teaching them appropriate behavior, a replacement behavior, to still get the need met. Maybe they want to be the one who's the leader, they want to be in charge, they want to be the captain of the team. Okay, we're going to teach you how to do that in an appropriate way. But another benefit of that is, for instance, if Michael was the bully, we're going to spend more time together. And if I'm a cool adult who sets the boundaries, teaches them new skills, most of the time, with most kids, he's going to start to actually like me. He's going to appreciate my company. And he's going to want to start to act in a manner that makes me proud. And if I express that, hey, you know, we've been spending a lot of time, we've been having a good time, you know, mentor to child, and he starts to still do something that's hurtful to others, and I call him on it, most of the time they're going to start to feel bad about it, so he's going to change his behavior. It's another benefit of the consequence of, you've been bullying, we're spending more time together.
Well, there is a cause and response, if you will, or if maybe those aren't the right words, but let's say I'm the bully, and I exhibit a behavioral, what do I call it, just an exhibition of behavioral
You bully,
aggression.
you hurt other people.
I'm bullying somebody. Because I've done that before, and perhaps I've done that many times, I'm expecting some sort of a response, usually punitive, negative, shouting, scolding, and to some degree, maybe I find that to be reinforcing my behavior, and I have found that to be a formula that works. I bully you, you either kowtow or you do whatever you do, but there are typical responses that the bully receives and thrives on or grows from. And I think what I hear you saying is unstructure that and create a different response that the bully is not expecting.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right.
They're expecting that you want to bully me, I'm going to hit you back, or I'm going to punish you or something. That's what they're getting now.
There's almost a comfort level in that punitive system.
Exactly.
They almost expect that, and that's their comfort level because that's what they're used to.
Right.
We have to break that dynamic. Now, you also said something else. You said that sometimes they're also used to people kowtowing to them, to going along with that.
Sure.
So we also have to work with the targets. We also have to teach the targets, when somebody's going to bully you, how do you tell them to knock it off? How do you tell them, hey, you can't do that to me? And in an effective way, not a violent way, but an effective way that sends out a message to the bully, you picked on the wrong guy. You're coming at the wrong person. You're messing with the wrong gal here. Don't mess with me. And so we also, not only are we working with the bullies, and that's important in the book that we give that information out, not only are we working with the bullies, but we're also working with the targets to making sure they send out the appropriate message.
And I'll add to that, by the way, just to round it out completely, and it's important to know, most kids are not chronic bullies. They all have the potential bully. Kids often will do something mean,
Except
but
for the
that's a
three of
whole.
us.
Yeah, of course. Present company excluded.
You talking to me?
I'm talking to you. Hey, I'm from the Bronx and from Brooklyn. Now, come on. Most of our kids are not chronic bullies. Most of our kids are not chronic targets day in and day out. I mean, of course, there are exceptions. But all children are bystanders of bullying. All the kids in the school, if bullying happens, whether it's physical, online, manipulation, gossip, or whatever, they know it. So one of the main things that we do is make sure that we also empower the biggest group right there, which is the bystanders, to teach kids how to step up for somebody else, how to be a hero, how to get involved, and not just say, I want you to stand up for the little guy, but we actually teach kids, we role model, and we actually have them role play, how you can tell some other kid to, hey man, cut it out, leave him alone. What are the words? How do you look? What's your relationship with the people? Maybe Michael is a bully, but Michael is bullying, let's say you, for instance, to give an example. And I want him to stop bullying you because I don't like when he bullies you. I like Michael, I just don't like that. So how can I say, hey Mike, come on, let's go out of here, let's go play basketball. In fact, the answer to the how do you do that was exactly the way I did it.
Take him out of the situation.
I take him out of the situation. I distract him. I could do that online also. He starts gossiping about you online. Did you hear the stupid things that Bob said in class today? And I might write back, you know, did you see that movie this weekend that was out or whatever?
Kind of a distraction.
A distraction. So it could be direct. It could be online. There are times when I might want to get you out of there. I can't get him to stop, but how can I walk you away? Maybe I need to get a couple of my friends, because I'm not scared of him. I just don't like what he's doing, but I can't stop him. How do I about if I get a couple of my friends and kind of walk in between and say, hey, see you later, Mike. We need Bob for a little while.
Sometimes that target freezes there and doesn't know how to get themselves out. Sometimes that bystander, who doesn't feel threatened, who doesn't feel like they're going to lose their status, can sometimes come in. And what's also important is if these techniques aren't working, when do you go to that trusted adult? When do you go to that person and say, you know, this one's a little bit past me. I'm that bystander. I'm seeing this. It's making me feel uncomfortable, but I'm not getting involved in that. Who can I go to? Who can I trust that will actually make the situation better? Because that's one of the things that bystanders are really worried about. I'm going to go to the adult. They're going to ride in on their white horse.
And
they're going to make it worse.
It's going to come back to bite me.
Reinforce the punitive behavior. It's going to make me the heavy bad guy.
Right.
The bully's going to now direct his
Right.
energies.
Maybe the bully's going to come back at
me.
How do I identify that cool, trusted adult? And what do I really want that trusted adult to do? That's why staff training becomes so important, because if staff comes in and messes up that situation and makes that situation worse, that bystander is going to learn, don't trust adults, don't go to that trusted adult.
And all the other bystanders will learn, whoa, don't do that.
Yeah. Well,
so you have to learn how to be able to report this behavior in a manner that doesn't go back to what you were saying, doesn't make me vulnerable, that it's going to come back to bite me in the butt.
And I don't mean to pick on your origins from where the reference that you just made, but typically Vermonters, if you will think a crime happens in New York, and the police will show up and say, well, what'd you see? I didn't see a thing.
Right, and we don't want that. We want responsible citizens, whether they're younger or they become older. And I say the same thing to kids. If I see somebody, to use an example, breaking into somebody's car, and they got a big crowbar, and I'm like, well, that guy's scary. Well, I may not go over to that person, but I think it would be expected, most people would expect me as an adult, to call the police. Maybe I'll drive a little further, take out my cell phone, report it somehow. Well, we want the same behavior from children. Maintain your safety. But if it's something that's hurting somebody else, it's okay to report. And a big issue there, I'm going to kind of come around, is, but isn't that tattling? My parents said, mind your own business. Don't be a tattletale.
Don't get into anybody else's business. That's not your problem.
All right, where is that fine line? So we have to actually teach that. Once again, it comes down to breaking all this dynamic down into steps that we understand. The difference between tattling and telling is, if I'm tattling, or whatever word a particular school may use, snitch, ratfink, whatever, it's like you're just telling Mr. Bob, the teacher, what Mikey is doing, because I just want to get Mikey in trouble, like he's reading a comic book. He's not hurting anybody. He's not supposed to be reading the comic book during class, but I'm saying it to get him into trouble. That's tattling. But if Mike is hurting somebody else, if I know that he's planning to beat up somebody else after school and I know he's going to kick that person's butt, you know what, and I know that that's wrong, then I should tell the teacher, I'm trying to get that other person
So
out of trouble.
How do we get that person on the finer tuned aspects of bullying? The physical part, okay, you run in and you tell an authority, hey, this guy's going to pound on that kid,
Right.
that's not good. But we talked earlier about the eye glances and the nuances of bullying. That's a little finer point. And is that more difficult to bring to an authority figure? And how do you address that? How do you get to that level? When you see somebody just looking over, you and I are talking, he starts to speak, and you just look and you just, great. Camera, yeah, right. You're just dismissing this person out of hand. And, one time is one thing, but every single time that person speaks, you are with your eyes and with your body language.
Yeah,
you're
the
drilling
size.
him, you're drilling him right into the ground.
Every day during class or wherever.
Now, it's one thing if the teacher's actually spotting this on a regular basis, but there's always a clique of friends that see what's going on. How do you encourage the bystander, the non-threatened in the middle, to go to an authority figure and say, there's something going on here
Well,
that you ought to pay attention to?
one of the things that I would tell that child is that wouldn't be my first step. Quite honestly, if I saw those eye rolls and things like that, I wouldn't go to the adult right away. If this is somebody I know, it's like, man, what are you doing? Come on, knock that off. Use your status within the group. And sometimes there's strength in numbers. We often think of peer pressure as a negative, but sometimes there's 5 of us of status saying, come on, what are you doing? You're acting like a jerk. Leave him alone. Stop with all the sighing every time he or she is speaking. Before we go to the adults, we can sometimes take care of these situations ourselves. We can use the pressure that we have, the social pressure, appropriate social behavior, to tell them, look, we don't do that here. That's not the way our town works. That's not the way our school works. If you're going to be hanging with us, we just don't do that. Man, knock it off already. We've told you, knock it off. And that can have amazing power because there is strength in numbers. And because there's 4 or 5 of us, and there's one of you who keeps on making that eye roll or, the sigh or something like that, we can let you know in a cool way, just don't do that here. Now, on the other hand, if we've told you to knock it off, it's getting worse, it's escalating upward, now we may need to get that adult involved. And we go to the adult, and we don't always have to tell them all the detail. We could say, you might want to watch what Bob is doing every time Steve talks. It's really kind of rude. Check it out. Okay? Or just watch Bob during math class. See what happens. Or when there's a problem in the bathroom, why don't you go and look? You don't have to give all of the details. You don't have to rat anybody out or narc anybody out. But at the same time, you can step up in an appropriate way.
And the reason, by the way, the motivation that you're reporting is because you're trying to get somebody out of trouble. Somebody is, again, there's an abuse of power. It's not just do it to get someone in trouble.
Tattling's getting them in trouble.
Yeah,
Right.
This is getting them out of
getting
Now,
trouble.
it's funny because sometimes people say, well, you make this sound so easy. Well, it's not. The whole dynamic is we've broken it down into chunks based on research. So we could teach the skills, whether it's to students, teachers, or how we can help parents help their children. But it is actually very difficult. We take a difficult situation and make it easier. But it's not easy. None of what we're saying is easy. But we can make it easier by empowering the children and sometimes the staff to say, this is how you differentiate between tattling and telling. This is how you stand up for yourself. This is how you can be a hero and stand up for somebody else. It's not just words, do this. This is how you do this. It would be kind of like, well, all you got to do is take this basketball, you dribble down the court, throw it in the basket, that's it. Well, no.
Well.
We start with that. Say, right. It's
a big difference.
Oh, okay. Well, now I got to actually
Michael
practice.
Jordan might have had a couple of different moves.
And following up on that, think about that basketball player. That basketball player has to practice their skills so that they can, in fact, do it when it's game time. You have to do that with students also. If you just do this lesson once in September and expect them when April there's a problem that they're going to rise to the occasion, probably is not going to happen. A good teacher reinforces the lesson, reminds students of the lesson. Good parenting is about bringing the lessons back around. It's not that you had that conversation once when they were 7 and now when they're 15, they should be able to relate back. You have to keep on bringing it back around as it's age appropriate so that when that moment comes, they actually feel comfortable. Now, how do I stand? Now, what's my words? What do I do with my voice? Where do I put my hands? Yeah. Things like that are already dealt with.
Some of it is actually, when we talk about standing up to the bully, even if not fighting, I often equate it to like martial arts expertise, of being aware of how you stand, where your hands are, how to be strong without being aggressive, how to express confidence without coming off too cocky, which almost perpetuates a type of bullying
sure it would.
situation.
Yeah.
You're trying to get out of a bullying situation. You're not trying to make a situation worse.
Right.
Good point. Were you guys going to do a little demonstration here?
Yeah.
Can we talk
Yeah,
about that?
okay. What we'll do is, what we do, and this is work that we work with students.
I'm not going to get hurt, am I?
Well, we're
Not too bad.
we'll see. One of the things that we do this with students, and students really love that, and we also teach parents to work with their children. Now, there's different ways of doing this. Now, in this particular scenario,
I'm the
Mike is the
bystander.
bully. You're the bystander.
You're gonna be the
which
bystander.
means that you could be pretty cool, or you can make the situation worse. Meaning that if you kind of go,
You're a dead man.
That's a lot of power. That's a lot of power.
That's a lot of power.
Sure.
Oh, well, all right.
so if Michael is the bully, for instance, now let's say, because as Michael mentioned before, bullying very often is not physical, but it's more of the verbal type. So a couple of things. Now, one of the things that they say, or you hear adults say to kids, is that we'll just ignore them and they'll stop, which is sometimes true and sometimes not, depending on the details, once again. So for instance, we'll say to somebody, if they're bothering you, one thing to do is just ignore. Well, what does ignoring look like? We're in a condensed space here, and I can't really move too much. But if Michael is bothering me and I'm just reading this cool new book that I heard all about, and he says something that, yeah, there it is.
Like it.
And he says some put downs and stuff.
Oh my gosh, you smell so bad. What kind of stink is coming out of you? You are such a gay boy. I can't believe you act so strange. What is wrong with you?
Now, I started to turn and walk away. Notice a couple things. I really wasn't paying any attention to him. I just kept looking at my book. And I wasn't giving him a reaction. A lot of times what he wants is somebody to go, some sort of reaction, or stop it, well, you're a jerk too. Where he's coming out with the real funny zingers, probably making a whole bunch of other people laugh.
Yeah.
And I come out with
And they're
something
thinking
lame.
he's cool.
And he's thinking,
And my bystander's back here.
Yeah,
Go on, give it to him. Yeah.
so if I try to insult him back, maybe I got one good one in my pocket, but unless I'm really good at this, I'm going to look even more lame. I tried just ignoring, and then if you notice, though, I didn't have big reactions. I didn't show that I was getting upset. I didn't turn red. I didn't start to cry. I didn't yell and scream. Or I didn't do, ah! Okay, that's not ignoring. Ignoring is just standing there, head up,
The
back
bystanders
straight.
would have loved that.
Right.
They would- it's a show.
If he would have freaked out, we would be back tomorrow. We'd come back each and every
Yeah.
day because we got such a good reaction.
We got the reinforcement of the behavior that we're,
That's right.
Exactly.
promoting.
In a sense, when you are being targeted, you want to be boring. There's no big response. There's just this. I'm not going to waste my time listening to this guy. I'm not going to stand here and get abused by this. I'm out of here. That kind of attitude has to be given off in the body language, in the eye contact, how you hold yourself.
So if you walk away, as you notice after a while he didn't stop, if I'm going to walk away, again, I'm going to walk away showing confidence, which means my head is up, my back is straight, I'm just walking normally from here to someplace else, preferably to where there are other people. But I'm not like stamping off and stomping. I'm boring. Now, that may work and it may not. Very often it does because I'm boring. But another way of teaching children how to be assertive, how to stand up for themselves without making the situation worse. So a different experience might be is one, if I'm in a situation where I can't walk away, it's not appropriate, or if I do walk away, but he's following me, one of the things we do, and again, it's in a condensed space, is to show how I'm going to tell Michael to cut it out. And there are 4 points. Well, first of all, I have to remain calm and show some confidence. And the way we do that is through body language, eye contact, the words I say, and the tone of voice. So for instance, in this example, I'm going to turn on a 45-degree angle towards the main bully here. And I'm going to be, and I can't really do it here, but an arm and a half to 2 arm length away. Because I want to make sure I'm safe. If he keeps coming into my space, he may start out as a verbal bully, but maybe he wants to go hit me. So I want to have some reflex time. I also want to be on a 45-degree angle because all of a sudden, if they stun all of them, the other bystanders
Because
come
remember,
after
this
me.
is not in isolation.
Okay,
Right, there's a
I
group
want
of
to be
guys
able
behind
to. Right, I want to be able to just swivel my hips and get out of there. If I'm faced this way, just at him, means he come. Now I'm at
You're off
a
balance.
dis-
You're off balance.
Exactly.
And also, if he goes to hit me, I'd rather. Well, he can hit me in the face. Any of these
Yeah, you're
very
protecting
vulnerable
yourself on
places.
the line, sure.
If I'm on a 45-degree angle, I may still get hit, but less vulnerable. So there's the body language or part of it. The other one is keep your hands in front of you, not in your pockets. because this is weak, and also my hands are now not in
Tied
a good
up.
place, right?
Yeah, you're tied up.
Okay, just keep your hands down.
Or
This
at
is
the
not
s-
good.
or at the side.
Or at the side, all right? And again, so head up, back straight. I want to make eye contact. Bullies are not expecting that confidence. They're expecting a nervous child to look anywhere else, down at the ground, up at the sky. I often think about the character Napoleon Dynamite in that movie, if you might have seen it. Okay, well, it's all the kids have seen Napoleon Dynamite. His eyes are always going everywhere. In other words, and he is a perfect target.
And there's a reason, by the way, that I've picked on this person as the target, because I think I can get away with that bullying.
Exactly.
When he gives me that eye contact, when he gives me that strong voice, ooh, I may have picked the wrong guy. Bullies do mean things, but they're not stupid. They're opportunists. I may have picked the wrong guy. I'm going to go to the next one.
This person had done something at some point in the relationship to trigger to you
Right.
that he's vulnerable.
Right, and when
Or
he
she.
gives,
Or she.
and by the way, this also happens to girls. We're using the male here, but every bit as
Right.
much happens to females. You want to send out that clear, strong message. You've picked on the wrong person. That doesn't mean you have to be violent about it, but you've picked the wrong one.
Exactly. And this is the way of expressing that, because I'm not cowering, I'm not overreacting with my body. It's a stillness and a strength. I'm making the eye contact, and it just has to be for a moment. It doesn't have to be this long thing.
Yeah, you're not staring him down.
No, not staring him down. I
Because,
don't want.
because
you don't
that's going to
wanna
make yeah, you want to go.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
that's going to become provocative in the negative way. It's that Mike, knock it off with a strong voice, strong eye contact, and then you're turning and you're getting out of there.
And notice what he said, something short and to the point. It's Mike, cut it out. 4 words. That's it. It's not going into the bully policy. It's not talking about the dynamics of bullying. Mike,
You know, I
cut
read
it
in
out.
this book, stopping bullying at breakfast.
Oh, exactly.
And notice my tone of voice. It's not like, Mike, cut it out!
Yeah.
Sorry, in the sound room. Okay, and it's not mumbling. It's not, Mike, cut it out, will you? You know, all of a sudden, notice with that whine, my body starts to
Both
whine.
of those, I felt you were a victim.
Right,
Exactly.
exactly.
Both of
Exactly.
those, standing here, I felt you were a victim.
Right. And
Exactly.
so did
And so-
everybody else.
right.
And so did everybody
If
else.
I
And,
just
the,
do-
and the viewing audience at home, I'm sure, can sense it
Yeah.
too.
So if I
Yeah.
just say, hey, Mike, cut it out, and then I turn, again, swivel on my hips, and walk away, if it's appropriate, that's it. Short and to the point. Mike, stop. Now notice, I could say, cut it out, or leave me alone, or Mike, leave me alone.
Yeah.
Mike, cut it out. And that's it. And then I go back to what I'm doing. Maybe it's using a computer. Maybe I'm on the bus and I turn away and I walk away. Now, I may walk away and he may throw out a couple of last second insults or something to save face. But
Yeah.
if he stops the behavior, that's all I want. I'm not expecting that this person's going to say, gee, I'm sorry, Steve, that was rude. No, I just want him to stop.
Not going to happen.
Not
And
gonna
parents, let your children know, expect that last throwaway kind of line. I want to look good in front of my boys. I got my troops back here. I want to save face also. So.
Sure.
So, these are very strong and powerful responses. Now, there's no guarantee that any will work. You want to practice them, what the ignoring looks like, the walking away looks like, the body language, what to say it, how to respond. I'm not sure how he's going to respond. So you practice this with children. And if it doesn't work, or all of a sudden you notice this happens day after day, we go back to saying, hey, look, at this point, I need help from an adult. I need to work with an adult of how I can stop the situation and at the same time still develop resiliency and pride and feel good about myself in a situation where someone's trying to take power away from me and make me feel bad.
Well, and more importantly, you want it to stop. You don't want it to escalate.
Don't want it to
Exactly.
escalate.
Yeah, and-
Exactly.
And that's it. Yeah, back to our seats. Yeah. You guys are done, I presume. No
Yeah.
For that matter, yeah. And again, that was in a very condensed
Sure.
space.
Well, we
and
have
so-
tape on the floor. They weren't allowed to
Yeah,
move.
we're
running off camera. And we actually think Steve did run away. It's interesting to note, as we talked about earlier, I am a trained martial artist, and
Right.
the way you talked about standing and holding your hands and your eye contact and what we call ma'ai, or your distance to your opponent. In the case of sparring. That was all exactly the same. It was all exactly the same. It was interesting to see that.
And yeah, and the kids we found, really feel empowered. And some of them, almost every class, there's always some child that's taken some sort of martial arts or self-defense, and they can really relate. And all the kids can point to them and say, "Yeah, this is exactly. It's using the same skills in a different manner. It's very empowering, very often, and it makes the kids feel good. And when you feel empowered and you feel more confident, you walk with a certain confidence, which will then limit your vulnerability."
Right.
Which is, I think that's got to be 98% of
Absolutely.
this is how you project. Are you telling the world that you are a victim
Yes.
I'm a vulnerable person because of the way I'm holding my body or the way if you speak to me and I go, come on, leave me alone. I'm portraying to you that I am vulnerable and thus expect that kind of response from you. And you're feeding off that.
Absolutely.
It becomes a feeding frenzy.
The two, yeah.
And we as the adults, if we just say, well, don't do that, well, that's not nearly enough information. That's why
that doesn't
taking
help.
the information and breaking it down really can be very helpful. And this really does help for the parents at home.
If I was a parent, if I was a teacher, if I was an interested citizen about this subject, the book that we have here is How to Stop Bullying and Social Aggression. And it can be purchased where?
Everywhere.